and sunny, with temperatures dipping into the low 50s by evening. This is Max.
I'm Paul Sims, and I'm here with
Josh Lieb
and
Robert Spina.
And this episode was, I think, the third episode of the fifth season, and it was called Lucky Burger, which was because we liked that movie Lucky Burger that was always on.
Good Burger.
Good Burger, that's it.
No, was that it with Keenan and Kel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we watched that movie over and over on the satellite dish. Josh, oh, that was me. Tell us about this episode a little bit, if you remember.
It's Lisa she goes undercover at a fast food restaurant and gets very competitive, trying to rise up in the ranks there. I don't remember what the other story is. I remember my cousin Rachel is an extra in the background at the hamburger stand, and I'll point her out.
When that comes up.
Exactly.
And also, I remember when we were shooting this, didn't we have to shoot the one of those hamburger restaurant scenes more than a few times because there was one extra who didn't realize this wasn't live TV, and he thought that if he sort of got in the shot, that somehow everyone in America would see it and that we wouldn't edit it out later.
It seems like extras are always doing that to you, Paul.
You know, we should have a commentary session with just extras in here and hear what they would say about us, which I don't think would be
that hairy guy from seasons 1 and 2.
Oh, stop! That's terrible. Now we're gonna get sued.
No, I like that guy.
There's John Lovitz, who came in to play the part of Max Lewis. Maybe I'll save what I have to say about John until he's here, so we can have a good argument.
Well, I hope he's going to be here because he didn't find out about this until the last minute in sort of typical news. I think he might be out of town on one of his stand-up tours. But John came in, obviously, and sort of saved the day for us. I don't think we would have had a show without him. He came to fill in the shoes of his best friend, Phil Hartman.
True. So we're back, and while we paused, Stephen Root has joined us. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, everybody.
Stephen.
Hey, look, there's me. I like Morris hair like that.
I do too. You know that. I wish he was here because we have questions that the fans sent in on the internet after we gave out a web address or what do you call it? An email address.
Questions
on the last
like
thing. Questions like, why did Maura Tierney's character have to have her bra show in all the outfits? No, I don't think that's fair. I don't see a bra.
That was an NBC
there.
note.
Yeah.
I don't remember her bra showing a lot, but that's a good question. We'll get to it later. So we were talking about season 5 was a tough season for all of us, especially Josh. I had a deal to go to sort of leave the show, even though I was on the same lot, and develop another show for NBC. So Josh was pointing out that they test pilots. And there's a ranking system from 1 to 100. And the pilot that I spent a year working on, instead of working on NewsRadio, got a 4
out of 100.
Out of 100. So my time might have been better spent here.
I would have given it a 10 anyway.
Did you ever see it?
Yeah, no. I was on the set every once in a while.
Oh, that's true.
That original script was terrific.
Yeah.
Original script was at least a 12.
If that tower fell over one more time, I was going to punch somebody.
It was a bridge before.
Up on his resume, and it seems that the stations he claims to have worked at have no record of a Max Lewis ever working there.
Your people checked up on this, did they?
Yeah.
And Josh, so you were saying...
Oh, it was just, look, obviously for the most obvious reason that Phil had just been killed was the hardest
Well, first
thing.
of all, which show is how far in this show?
This is episode 3, Lucky Burger.
Okay, because the first 2 episodes, the whole episode doing Phil's death was the hardest thing I've ever done in show business. Basically, we didn't rehearse the show. We read it. We said, we'll come in for camera broccoli, but we won't rehearse it because it was too hard. Everybody just cried all week.
It was traumatic.
And then the audience cried all the way through the shooting, but I thought it was the best, one of the best written shows in the series because I thought you did a really wonderful.
Yeah, that was all Paul.
Honor to him.
Thank
Paul.
you. That was great. Yeah, it was a hard show.
I'll tell you, this is in going back to what a year this was for me. And also, I had personal issues, and I was very young, and everything was like. But I remember when I was running the show, and I was so nervous, and I thought I was going to get on my own schedule, and then like we had a big fight over the summer, remember, on the phone, where I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. And you're like, are you kidding me? You're like, I'm not just giving you the show. I was like, you should find someone else. Oh, there's Dave Higgins in the back.
There's Higgins in the back, and this is my favorite one because remember, this is where the extra came up in the middle between me and Maura in one take.
We were just talking about that. The extra
my goodness.
who thought this was going out live on the air, and that somehow he would get his face.
I'm gonna
on
get my face in there
I wish
between
we'd
these
left
two
that
guys.
in.
Yeah, it was right here. Right here is where he came in.
I bet.
I swear to God.
For anyone who has the DVD, I'm sure it appears on the blooper
There's my cousin
reel.
Rachel in the background with the red hair.
Right off to the
Yeah.
left side, right there. Yeah, I remember cousin Rachel.
Yeah. So at any rate, and then.
But anyway, yeah, it was hard for you.
Well,
you-
and then
you-
also, but I was like, but tense about it, and it was early on, and we were, I'd wanted to be really far in advance, but. We were you were still really in charge at the beginning, certainly. And
I just checked out Maura's ass right there. Go ahead.
And I was waiting, so we had to write that we had to have the first episode, which you ended up writing beautifully, but we were waiting for it. And I've never told you this. I ended up writing a secret
Oh, did you?
script, yeah.
In case it never came about.
Exactly.
That was a good idea because there was a lot of time when I was writing that where I was like, I don't know what's it. Was it good?
You know what? I ended up cannibalizing some of it for the episode where Matthew becomes a punk rocker. Because that was going to be my sort of like Matthew reaction to
Was that ever a real show?
to Bill getting killed. Yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, you.
When you see the pictures, you'll remember.
Okay.
So it was tough all around for everyone. It was a different feel without Phil there. I mean, we had most of the same writers, the same cast, obviously, except for
but
Phil.
the
We had
problem was
Tom.
with, John is very funny in his own rhythms, but his rhythm was da 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 da, and our rhythm was da 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 da. And then da 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 would not work in that rhythm.
It was almost impossible for anyone to come into that situation.
Yeah,
and
it
show
would have
them
been impossible for anybody.
Yeah,
but
but I think I did a yeoman's work. I mean, some of those. So I say this was a tough year. I'm really proud of some of the episodes we came out with. Not this one. But,
well, the first three were except for the one, the very first one, I thought were rocky just because the rhythms were so incredibly different. I think it got a little better as it went along. I think it got a lot better when we got to the jail stuff because that was more. We got into the groove at least as much as we could for that season.
It's true. It was hard to figure out how to write for Lovitz. I mean, I didn't write anything until I think towards the end of the season. I wrote some episodes, but it was hard. It was. Yeah, I mean, John's complaint always was, well, I don't know what my character is. And our thing was, well, when we started, we didn't know who any of these characters were. And we sort of based it partially on who the actors were and what had happened. And
I don't know if we ever quite figured it out because we went a couple different ways with him. So it was like he had a crush on Beth, then he had some weird relationship with Matthew that was probably a little too much like Bill's relationship with Matthew.
Right.
I think when we first started, all we had, and this was his suggestion, was that his name was Max Lewis. And that he really liked that name and liked saying, I'm Max Lewis.
Yeah, the coach was like his grandfather's name or something.
Yeah.
But then we were just sort of asking him to be funny. We didn't.
And that's okay for one episode when he's guest starring.
Yeah,
It's hard to do an arc of it.
Yeah, we didn't. But I don't know. I'm very for instance, I really like the episode and skip forward to this on the DVD where you guys are all up for the same apartment.
I like that one too. Yeah.
Right.
So anyone who's watching this episode, just skip forward. Just push the button. And
Wow,
skip
but
forward.
no, you'd miss Dave Higgins, who's a lovely man.
Brother of Al Higgins.
Brother of Al Higgins, one of the writers, and also the man who back in season 2 played the evil Santa Claus who wanted to kill Bill McNeil.
Absolutely. And later a star on
Malcolm in the Middle.
Malcolm in the Middle. That's right. You know what? I'm gonna go to some of these questions that people have emailed in. People who saw the email address on the last DVD thing. Who was the best and who was the worst at remembering their lines? Stephen?
Oh, let's see. Remembering
Foley
their-
was the best.
Foley
at
was
remembering
definitely
his
Foley
the
lines.
was the best because he has a photographic memory and he just looks at the page and he's got them. Phil and I worked very hard to remember them. And we believe it or not, we really worked really hard to remember them. Andy,
Worst?
Good, best or worst?
but worst.
So Andy might have been the worst at remembering his lines.
There's no might have been.
He just was.
He just was.
I think when he was
Wait,
high.
there's a picture he drew.
Andy actually drew it. Oh yeah, I do remember that.
I remember that picture.
It's Dave flying on a magical pony or unicorn or something. Who was the best? This is another fan question.
Wait a minute.
I've got it. If you're talking
actually,
about lines,
This is the script supervisor.
Yeah,
he would know. There you go.
this was the best cast I've ever worked with for remembering their lines. Considering when we got the scripts
And how often the
how
lines
little they
changed.
saw them,
Yeah, it's true.
no one completely broke down a scene, and there was always somebody to pick it back up. I mean, we didn't have long breaks when a scene fell apart. We didn't wander off in different directions. Everybody got it done. Dave was the best because he knew it as soon as he read it.
Yeah.
And he could ad lib if he stopped. He would ad lib something and keep going.
But because of where everybody had come from, Stephen in the movies and Vicky on Broadway and all that, everybody was set to do it. And Phil was the most prepared actor I've ever seen.
Phil would hours. He would. Work
And
on
he had
his
the,
stuff.
and the thing I remember about Phil was the tabs. He would lay his script out on the table every morning, and he would put these colored tabs in.
And we'd make fun of that.
We'd make fun of it, but he always knew, and it was a beautiful thing.
Stephen, I can't remember, was it during the pilot or an episode soon after that? There was one night where you forgot, what do you actors say? You went up? You went up?
Oh, we were talking about that at your roast. It was big bonus, big
day,
day, yeah. Because I had millions of lines. It was the first time I'd had millions of lines, and Jimmy B rehearsed us into the ground, and made us just. We were way over rehearsed, and I was way over rehearsed, so that I just blanked out in the middle of it.
What happens? What's the connection between being over rehearsed and blanking out?
If it's eventually why we stopped doing run-throughs right before the show, because if you just got too much information, because you've learned different lines every day for the week, and then if you have you're just burned out by the end of the week.
And then is that one of those things where once you've forgotten them twice, you start thinking about
the old ones,
Yeah.
and you don't, and you get as soon as you get one hiccup, then you're gone, because it's got to be a through line, or else it don't work.
The other thing that I remember about this cast was that they didn't carry scripts on most of the shows I've ever done.
Well, we did that because of Dave. We were embarrassed because Dave would, the first day, Dave would have them, and we looked like morons. So we would really work all hard to be off book by like Tuesday afternoon.
It's not that you look like morons; it's that Dave made you feel like morons.
Yes, that's true.
But on a show day,
we liked it.
Unlike other shows where people would carry their scripts around, what we used to do was we would litter the set. We would put scripts on every flat surface, and when somebody had a problem, they'd just pick one up, look at it for a second.
They were under newspapers a lot.
And go. And they were everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
Here's another fan question from the email. This is from. I'd like to read out the people's names, but it's all their email addresses, so and I don't want them getting email. So I'll just say this is from someone named Niska Betta. Who was the best and who was the worst at keeping a straight face? I think Joe Rogan was the worst at keeping a straight face.
I'll agree with that 100%.
I think if you go through the episodes you can watch, there's at least 20 times where you can see Joe
smiling
up about
through the whole thing. He was as bad as Seinfeld.
Has he always come to life in the spring?
When did he start losing his hair?
Hey.
Hey, Joe was on Corolla today. Is he coming over?
I don't know. He hasn't called me back.
He should come over
I know.
today.
Well, I'll call him again.
Anyway.
Which leads to another good question from Columbia Tyler. Why aren't Joe Rogan and Andy Dick on any of the new DVD commentaries? They weren't they? Maybe not last time.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody was on season 4,
Yeah,
as far as I know.
I mean, NewsRadio, it's surprising considering how well organized we've always been. But no, it just hasn't. It's all been sort of last minute. Sorry,
well,
guys.
Joe's a comedian, so he's always gone. He's always working somewhere. So that's tough.
Backstory, all right? Who are Max Lewis's friends? What are his hobbies? Where is he from?
Where do you come from?
I'd rather not say.
Fine. All right, Max, I'll tell you what. As long as you're on the air, reading the news...
Here's a fan question from AVK2. I was wondering why Todd Spider Chambers, our head of post-production, is called Spider. And that's because
You named him.
my friend Adam Resnick actually named him when we were doing the pilot because he reminded us of the character Spider in the movie Goodfellas. the kid who's on The Sopranos.
Yeah,
the guy. Imperioli, who gets shot in the foot because he doesn't fetch a drink fast enough.
And so he just became Spider, and now he's...
And now he actually is Spider.
Yeah.
Josh, fill in with something about this episode while I look for more good questions.
Sure, I have not been paying any attention at all. I guess Max is in trouble for doing something on the air. It's one of those things where poor Dave has to run into the booth and yell at whoever's on the air and try to reason with them. Really have not been...
No, have no clue what
idea?
this is about.
No. So I guess this is probably the B story. The A story being Mara working her way... Oh, shh. Oh, he's talking in Spanish.
Here's from David.
No, this is the B story. Me and Maura at Lucky Burger.
David Panisk asks, "What's your favorite Bill McNeil line?" And I remember mine. Should I say it?
No, please.
It's when Matthew gets fired. It was from the previous season where Matthew gets fired, and Bill says he wants to break the news to him because he knows Matthew idolizes him. And after taking 2 minutes for Matthew to finally understand that he's been fired, Matthew says to Bill, "But we'll still be friends, right?" And Bill says, "Well, I suppose anything's possible." And I think Josh wrote that line.
I can tell you who my son's is. Cody. Cody's favorite line is when in Kane episode when Dave asks, he walks into the Kane and Dave asks him, "What's that?" And he says, "Oh, you mean my cane?"
Your son has a sophisticated sense of humor. I like that. Robert?
Nobody cares how beautiful the souffle is when the entree is turds in a blanket.
Right. That sounds like a Joe Fury line, if I've ever heard one.
Josh, do you have one?
Mine would be Bill offers Dave a cigarette, and Dave goes, "I don't smoke," and Bill goes, "Your funeral."
Was that a Josh Lieb written line?
Of course. Why do you remember it?
I also remember the one when Bill takes Beth to the luncheon at the Waldorf episode, takes her to a fancy dress ball, and she gets a little tipsy or something and makes out with him. And he says it was like taking her daughter to the carnival and riding on the Ferris wheel, and then all of a sudden she Frenches you.
She sticks
her tongue in her throat. She Frenched her daddy.
Oh, you know what? And all that stuff you and Joe did with the adequatulence. Dave was not a word. And don't care.
And anything with the word gaziza.
Yeah.
Gaziza Glenn is what I remember.
Here's a good question from Ross21X. Where did Jimmy's fondness for Dave's mother come from?
That was pretty instantaneous. Was it?
It was through many episodes too.
Yeah.
Until I finally went to the house.
It was whose mother was it on the?
It was Dave's mom.
No, it wasn't Dave's mom. It was a picture of Nina's mom.
You mean on the actual one?
Photo? Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
I think it was Denise's mom. And
that could be.
And yeah, I don't know. It was like
I remember doing that a lot during the first 2 seasons, where Dave would walk into the office and Jimmy would be having
or just finishing a phone call with his mom.
Dave's mom.
Yeah, it was probably just some dumb joke we did once, and then we disliked it and just kept going with it.
Yeah.
Here's a question that's not from an email person. If we had ever had Dave's mom actually appear, what actress would you have wanted to be Dave's mom?
Morgan Fairchild.
Robert?
Isabella Rossellini was the one. Was Dave's choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That would have been great.
Oh, that's true, because when
He's
you look
not
at when Dave in drag looks a little bit like
He does.
Ruined Isabella Rossellini for me.
And who would have been Dave's dad? I know who my choice was, and I think we tried to get him once, but he was busy. Bob Newhart.
Oh, well, of course.
That would have been
brilliant.
That would have been something. Let's put the sets back up and get the cast back together
ready.
and do that. Given the chance, do you think Jimmy would ever have settled down with one of the women on his wife list? Asks Whip Warrior.
No, I don't think he ever would have.
Not even who was his name?
The tall one?
Loretta Swit.
Oh, Loretta Swit, he had a thing for.
That's true.
Hot lips.
Hot lips. How did the writers, this comes from Whip Warrior also, how did the writers put together Jimmy's words in the Super Karate Monkey Death Car episode? And he includes his favorite line, "The monkey clown, horrible karate, round and yummy."
That was just me and Paul going back and forth.
That's true.
That's it. In that episode, we actually shot a scene in my rehearsal coat.
Oh, that's right. You forgot to change your clothes.
It's in there somewhere, folks.
What were the lyrics you made up to go with the Mike Post song, and why does everyone hate it so much? Asks Sean. Mike Post was.
It's really Dave that hates it so much.
Mike Post was the one who did the theme song for the show. I always liked that song.
Well, it was one day a spaceship comes down from Venus, and out comes a robot. It's Dave Nelson. And then it's like about different robots coming out of the spaceship, and then the final line by Joe Fury was, "And they all live together on a boat."
Oh, that's right. I remember that. What was, we can ask these questions twice, one with him here and one without him here. What was it like working with John Lovitz?
Well, I'm about to work with him again, so obviously it was pretty good. John's hilarious. It was, again, I will say, this could not have been a more difficult season for any of us. It was the 5th season of maybe the most exhausting run in TV history. Mm-hmm. And he was sort of asked to come in an impossible position. But, I don't know, John's he just wants it to be funny and good. So we were all difficult a little bit that season. And if any, sort of problems we had was just, all trying to figure out how to do it better.
Yeah.
I'll be more critical. I do like John also, but I think the one thing that the rest of the cast shared that he had a harder time with was sometimes we would have an idea 70% there, and we'd be able to say to anyone on the cast, all right, just try it and we'll see what happens. And John wanted to talk about it more and figure it out before.
Well, I can tell you my story about John at the beginning of the season was...
Yes.
The first season of NewsRadio, we kind of had to beat Phil up to Phil. We're only throwing out lines because we want it to be funny. He would he was from the backbiting school of. He thought everybody was trying to get him from Saturday Night Live, and he finally relaxed and went, "Oh, you just want to make it funny? Okay, good." And I think the first couple of shows he would be late. I mean, they'd call him and say, "Come on, John, come on." I'm not gonna wait for the new guy. So I went out and he opened his door. He was on the phone. I put the phone down. Said, "You're not gonna ever do this again." And he never did it again. And at the end of the show, he said, "I wanted to thank you for doing that."
Oh,
that's a good spot to end on.